Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Echo Live. My name is Paulette, and I am the staff astronomer at the Michigan Science Center. I'm actually coming to you live from Orlando. I came down here to visit a few of my family members, but also to check out a couple of the amazing things that the Space Coast has to offer. Now, if you are new to our program, go ahead and introduce yourselves in our chat feature today, whether it be on Facebook or YouTube. That's how we'll communicate for our program. And welcome again to our very special episode about the James Webb Space Telescope. So we are so excited. The James Webb Space Telescope actually launched on December 25th, the morning of Christmas Day. And we as scientists were super excited about that launch happening. We have been waiting for many, many years for the James Webb Space Telescope to launch. But today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the exciting things about the James Webb Telescope. Now, we have gone through the James Webb Telescope in the past here on Echo Live, but we're going to go ahead and do a quick review of some of the things we've talked about. So the James Webb Space Telescope is a very, very large telescope that we actually launched, like I said, on December 25th. And it's going out to a spot just beyond on the other side of the orbit of the moon. We call that the Lagrange point, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit. The James Webb Space Telescope is going to be an infrared telescope. So it's going to allow us to see things that are further back in time than we've ever seen before. One of those things that has allowed us to see really far back in time was actually the Hubble Space Telescope. The Hubble Space Telescope was launched in April of 1990. But the Hubble Space Telescope has gotten quite old at this point, and it also is only able to see so far back in time because the Hubble Space Telescope mostly looks at visible light with a couple of different wavelengths in the near infrared. The James Webb Space Telescope has been put together specifically to have a larger mirror, like the one that we see here. You can see the James Webb Space Telescope mirror compared to our Hubble mirror. It's also coated in gold, and it will allow us to see infrared light. So the further away that something is, the more that we see something called, we see reddening. So the light that comes from these really far away objects actually slows down as it approaches us because there's stuff in the way out in space. So to see super far away, we're going to have to look closer to the infrared part of the spectrum. So the James Webb Space Telescope is going to allow us to do that. And here we have our ginormous James Webb Space Telescope mirror that is going to allow us to do that compared to the Hubble primary mirror. So Hubble has been working and is still out there and it's still working, but the James Webb Space Telescope is going to allow us to see so many more amazing things near the edge of the universe. It's actually going to allow us to see back in time a lot further. But before we get into that, the James Webb Space Telescope was launched, like I said, on December 25th, and we don't have any data coming back from that telescope yet. And the reason for that is because it actually takes some time for the telescope to get there. So it's going to take approximately 30 days for the telescope to get all the way out to that Lagrange point, and then continue to set up along the way. So the James Webb Space Telescope is deploying as it sort of moves out there. And let's go ahead and take a look at how it's doing that. So at about 31 minutes and 2 hours, we have the antenna deploying, 3 days, the sun shield, about 4 days, the deployable tower assembly. This is about where we are right now. It's going to continue flying out. And deploy all of its amazing pieces. So that was a video from NASA, which allowed us to be able to see how the James Webb Space Telescope is going to deploy. Now I talk about Lagrange points. Where is this thing actually going to sit? A Lagrange point is an interesting mathematic sort of formula that gives us some stable orbits. Some of those orbits are, or as you can see, we have 5 Lagrange points. One is between us and the moon. The other one is on the other side of the moon. And then we have 2 stable orbits here. And then if you look opposite the moon on the opposite side, that'll be another Lagrange point. So the Lagrange point that we're actually heading to is L2, right here outside the orbit of the moon. And we've actually reached that point already. The James Webb Space Telescope is going to show us some pretty amazing things. As you can see, the further back in time we have, the more redshift we see. So that's why we're going to be looking into that infrared part of the spectrum. The Hubble Ultra Deep Field Infrared was only able to see about 48 million years or so ago or so. And we're hoping that the James Webb Space Telescope is going to allow us to see about 200 million years ago or so. Maybe even further back than that. So we are very excited to see what the James Webb Space Telescope is going to show us. It's going to look a little different than those beautiful Hubble images that we are used to seeing, but it is going to be pretty amazing. Now, I am down here in Florida, and I was on Christmas Day too, and I actually was not able to see the James Webb Space Telescope launch. That's because it didn't happen here in the US. The James Webb Space Telescope actually launched from French Guiana. So it launched from South America. The James Webb Space Telescope is a partnership between the US and the European Space Agency. Now, I want to show you one more thing before we go today. Like I said, it is going to take a couple of days, about 30 days, for the James Webb Space Telescope to completely open up and get out to its L2 point beyond the orbit of the moon. But if you're curious and you want to watch it along the way, there's a pretty amazing website that you can see on the NASA website. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you're all able to see that as well. And here we have it. So the James Webb Space Telescope, it was the mission is done out of the Goddard Space Flight Center, which is in Maryland. And you can see that there's the jwst.nasa.gov, that allows us to see where the James Webb Space Telescope is and what it's opening up. So we had all of its early deployments, and we've actually already passed the orbit of the moon. And we are right here at about little over 4 days now. It'll tell you what the current deployment step is and allow you to take a really close look at what is going on. So NASA has some amazing resources to be able to track all the really cool things that are happening. And you'll see that we're about 40% of the way to our L2 point. We are super, super excited to see what the James Webb Space Telescope is going to teach us. And I hope that some of you see this and maybe check out some of the amazing resources on NASA's website to be able to see what the James Webb Space Telescope is doing next. So I want to thank you all for joining us today here on our Echo Live, and I want to thank you all for joining us if you are having, especially if you are on your break right now, your winter break. We have our Echo Live programs Wednesdays at 2:30 Eastern Time, and it's brought to you by DENSO and the Michigan Space Grant Consortium. So we want to thank you all for joining us today. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and I can answer them after our program today. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you are as excited about the James Webb Space Telescope as I am. Thank you, everyone, and hope you've had a happy holiday, and we